1 year ago tonight, Roots, the saga of an American family, literally blazed across this nation's screens. For 8 consecutive nights, more Americans watched this story than have ever watched any other in history. Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning book by Alex Haley, the 12-hour drama touched the nerve endings and the hearts of over 130 million Americans. It then went on to capture the imagination of peoples all over the world.
I'm Louis Gossett, Jr. I was privileged to be part of Roots. I played the role of Fiddler, a black man born into slavery, one who had never known the taste of freedom. I, along with hundreds of others, worked here on this set of the main house of the plantation on which another black man, the African Kunta Kinte, lived and died. I have been part of that drama ever since. For the drama around Roots did not end with the final broadcast of the 12th hour on the 8th night. It continues even now in the dialogue it generates between blacks and whites and among those who are trying to understand the history of their country. It continues to this day to bring families together and to provoke millions of others to seek out their own roots.
Cut him down.
Tonight, we will look back on the impact of those epical 8 nights of January 1977. We will look again at some of the memorable scenes from the television production.
There's gonna be another day. You hear me? There's gonna be another day.
We will see how Roots affected the American people, including another Southerner who, like Alex Haley in the fall of 1976, had just achieved national fame.
Notice that I was a little late arriving. I met Alex Haley outside, and I made the mistake of saying, "Alex, how's your family?" Unfortunately, he told me, and it took a while to get in.
We will accompany Alex Haley on a triumphal and an emotional return to his ancestral village of Jufere on the west coast of Africa, where during a 12-year search, he found his roots. We will see how Roots affected an 18-year-old student who portrayed Kunta Kinte in the television film. And we will accompany that student, LeVar Burton, on a pilgrimage to the gravesite of Kunta Kinte in Spotsylvania County, Virginia. And finally, we will witness an unusual historic event that took place on November 13th, 1977, an event that perhaps best illustrates the true meaning of Roots. (1750), a remote Mandinka village in the Gambia, West Africa. The firstborn child of Amoru, a son only 8 days old, has just been given his name. Thus begins the drama of the book and the television production of Roots.
Kunta Kinte. Behold, the only thing greater than yourself.
The boy, Kunta Kinte, grew to manhood, knowing freedom and dignity. Then he was captured and taken to America as a slave. Kunta's story was told to the young Alex Haley on the front porch of his childhood home in Henning, Tennessee. It was told to him by his grandmother, Cynthia. She had heard the tales of the African from her father, tales passed down from generation to generation. It was these tales that Alex Haley spent 12 years researching in an obsessive attempt to know all that he could possibly know about his ancestors. About his great-grandfather, Tom Murray, a blacksmith who had been born into slavery and set free after the Civil War. About his great-great-grandfather, the legendary Chicken George. About Kizzy, Chicken George's mother, who had been sold away from her parents. Kizzy had heard the stories of Africa directly from her father, Kunta Kinte. To piece together the jigsaw puzzle of his heritage, Alex Haley traveled over 500,000 miles on 3 continents, coming finally to the remote village of Jufere. 2 Mandinka words passed across 6 generations: Kambi Balongo, meaning river, and Ko, meaning guitar, were the main clues that finally led Alex Haley to this Gambian village. Here, in long sessions, he listened as the oral historian of the village, an elder called a griot, related the past history of the Kinte clan.
Very blessed by God, by Allah. During the course of time, one of the Kinte boys went in to chop wood for his parents.
Alex Haley remembers.
When the old griot's long narrative confirmed what I'd long since heard from my grandmother, I experienced an emotion I had never before felt in my entire life. It was a visceral emotion. It felt as if my very insides were churning around. I could feel goose pimples, because there was no way in the world for him to know what I had been told as a boy. What he had just told me meant that my long search was over. I had found my roots. The villagers sensed what had happened, and the women formed a circle around me, chanting and dancing, passing their babies to me one after another. It was almost too emotional a moment to handle. I was participating in one of the oldest ceremonies of humankind, the laying on of hands. What they were saying to me through this act of pressing their flesh to mine was, we are you and you are us.
Alex Haley completed Roots in 1976, but even before that, producer David L. Wolper had bought it for television. He tells us why.
Well, I've always been interested personally in a generational story. I try to develop a story even before Roots about 4 Indian generations, and then I couldn't get it on. I tried to develop one about 4 police generations in a family. I couldn't get that on. I tried to develop one about a family of an automobile family, 4 generations in an automobile family. But somehow I guess the timing was right, and when Roots came along, and I said, what a great idea, following a black family from Africa through all the turmoil of its life until today. Although I never really felt myself that Roots was a story about was a black story. It was a family story about a black family.
Once Wolper had placed Roots with the ABC television network, among the first tasks was finding a young black actor to play the African, Kunta Kinte. Over 150 actors were seen. 3 received screen tests, including 18-year-old LeVar Burton, a sophomore at the University of Southern California. This is LeVar Burton's actual screen test.
These are the fattest goats I've ever seen, Nyoboto.
It was his first time before a camera.
We're not children. We're very close to being men, Nyoboto.
Close to being men. Ha! Close to being men. Go tame your bony goats. Ha!
LeVar Burton got the part. He tells us what Kunta Kinte means to him.
To me, Kunta is a universal symbol. Everybody can relate to and identify with the feelings that that kid had going on in his mind, the happiness, the family, the kind of family feeling that he had growing up in Africa, and then being captured, the fear and the pain and suffering, everything he went through, everyone can identify with around the world. And he's a universal subject, he's a universal character. To me and to a lot of people, Kunta Kinte will live forever.
Film production began on Roots in April 1976, outside of Savannah, Georgia. The location was picked because of its striking similarities to the west coast of Africa. Actors and crew assembled here to begin what would become 6 months of filming. The spirit on the Roots set, both here and later in Hollywood, was unusual. Actor George Stanford Brown describes it.
I don't know, it was just an excitement that permeated the place, the whole set. Everyone was involved and knew that it was a good project and it was worthwhile, that it was the best material that had been done before, particularly for black performers. And it affected everyone, the crew, the white performers, everyone was just affected by it. And it was a feeling of great kinship. That's the thing that I remember most.
I think we all felt, the black and the white actor, that we were working on something very special. I don't think we predicted anything as tremendous as it finally came, you know, which has a lot to say for America.
It was a unique television experience, a unique historical experience, and I certainly never anticipated it, and I don't think anyone else did.
With production completed on Roots, ABC television executives Brandon Stoddard and Lou Rudolph, seen here, informed producers Stan Margulies and David L. Wolper of the decision to broadcast Roots on 8 consecutive nights. What happened next made television history. The country went Roots crazy. Concerts were canceled, restaurant business dropped, bars either closed or showed Roots instead of sporting events. Las Vegas and movie theaters reported the income sharply reduced. The critical reception of Roots followed the public one as the programs earned a record 37 Emmy nominations in 14 categories. Roots went on to win 9 Emmys, plus 50 other awards, including the Television Critics Circle Award as the Best Television Program of the Year. The final Nielsen tabulations showed that the concluding chapter of Roots was the most watched television program in history. In fact, all 8 episodes placed among the top 13 of all time.
I think that the reason that people came back to watch Roots night after night, that it commanded such an enormous audience, is because it was telling people about an institution that is most central in their own lives. In other words, it was telling them about the family. And this was something that crossed lines of color and of ethnicity. And it represents the fact that the family in American society today is an enormously important institution.
And white America responded with understanding.
It did indeed.
And black America found that there was even less reason to be bitter and hostile, because there was understanding and sensitivity brought to the whole country as a result of viewing those 12 hours.
To help foster that understanding, over 200 colleges gave academic credit to those who watched Roots on the air. The film is now a teaching tool at all educational levels, from kindergarten to college. The impact of Roots has been diverse. In the weeks that followed the program, many newborns were named after leading characters from the drama. Boys being called Kunta, girls being called Kizzy. Roots also inspired America's fastest growing hobby, genealogy. At the National Archives in Washington, D.C., inquiries from Americans searching for their family tree doubled the week following the show. The Mormons, whose giant repository of genealogical records is located in a vault in this mountain outside Salt Lake City, reported a similar rise in activity. Americans deluged them with requests about how they too could find their roots. Ancestor hunting, or genealogy, is now the third most popular hobby in the United States.
Well, I'm going to tell you now, your seventh great-grandfather.
Its popularity was further indicated by Alex Haley's visit to The Tonight Show.
He was indentured servant.
Haley surprised Johnny Carson with a genealogical chart going back 7 generations.
He was indentured to her captain. His name was James Conaway.
I had a slave in my family?
Well, he was
indentured servant.
That's right. And then your second great-grandmother was Sarah Lyle Hook. She was born 1807, and she crossed the plains in a prairie schooner in the 1850s. Have you ever seen a picture of your second great-grandmother?
No, I have not.
Here she is.
I'll be damned. This is my second great?
That's right, your great-great-grandmother.
You've got all the names, Marshall, the Hooks.
Well, we've been working on you.
Looked like it was a long haul in the schooner.
April 16th, 1977. Alex Haley, with his brothers George and Julius, have come home to their ancestral village, to Jufureh in the Gambia, West Africa. It was a triumphant return, as villagers from miles away joined in the welcome back to the American Mr. Kinte. The Mandinka natives, none of whom has ever seen a television set, have been made aware of their old friend's achievements. The government has told them how his book has made Jufureh an internationally famous village. Because of Roots, the Gambian government has declared Jufureh a national monument. In the years since the television program, American tourists have flocked to this tiny African village, forcing the government to restrict tours into the area to only 2 days a week. For Alex Haley, this emotional odyssey was highlighted by a reunion with the widow of the griot who first told him the story that climaxed the long search for his roots.
Many of you will remember when I first came to this village in 1967. In the years since that time, I have gone many miles, been many places, researching, and finally was able to determine that our forefather, our great-great-great-great-grandfather, whose name was Kunta Kinte, came from this village. We are a symbol of people whose forefathers came from Africa.
The culmination of this eventful journey was an unusual family portrait. These are all members of the Kinte family. Some say that more than 20 million slaves were taken from West Africa. It is a rare moment, then, in history when a descendant of one of those 20 million can find his way back to his ancestors' home. Alex Haley's family in the United States includes 2 daughters and a son, Sergeant William Haley of the United States Army. Sergeant Haley teaches a course in race relations.
Both in the Army and civilian communities today.
The author of Roots has 2 grandchildren. They are William Jr. and Michael. With his son and grandson, William Jr., Alex Haley discusses the aftermath of Roots.
Well, tell me, I'm curious, what's happened to you as a result of, you know, the book and all this in school or wherever? What is it?
Well, some people, when they found out, they believed me.
Believe what? Believe me.
They believed that that you wrote Roots and you were my grandfather.
Oh.
And sometimes they asked me to bring in a picture or give me your autograph.
Your autograph?
No, yours.
Oh. Yeah, well, you ought to be giving autographs, too. You know, you see, that my brothers and I are the 7th generation from Kunta. Your dad is the 8th generation, and you are the 9th generation. You're just as much descended from Kunta Kinte as I am. You're just a little bit further down the line.
Yeah, but they see me every day.
No, all right. Okay. Well.
After the television broadcast of Roots, it seemed everyone wanted Alex Haley's autograph. The quiet, retiring 55-year-old writer became an instant and unlikely hero on the American scene, both for blacks and whites.
It's a real pleasure.
He became the recipient of hundreds of awards and plaques, including 16 doctorates, one from his parents' school, Lane, a Negro college in Jackson, Tennessee.
1977.
Another from the Mormons' Brigham Young University, the foremost school for genealogy in the world. The former Coast Guard cook and college dropout, Alex Haley has truly been center stage since the publication and broadcast of Roots.
In the same room that you have.
Well, here's what you want. Here's Kunta Kinte.
Alex and I have a lot in common. He and I were both in the Navy. We both were famous enough last year to be interviewed by Playboy magazine. We both wrote a book. Mine was called Why Not the Best? His was.
By the end of 1977, the book Roots, already a runaway bestseller in the United States, was repeating its success in 28 different countries. And the television program, distributed internationally by Warner Brothers under the direction of Charles McGregor, followed suit. By year's end, Warner Brothers had booked Roots into 32 different countries.
Don't go away, African. Fiddle is coming. Hey, you. Toby. Bring your victuals. Yeah.
The television version of Roots has been translated into 12 languages.
Hola, Toby. Tu comida. Ten. Come. Espero que aprendas deprisa para no tener que venir con tu comida.
Tiens, Toby, remplis ta panse. Tiens. J'espère que tu vas apprendre vite et que j'aurai pas à t'apporter tes repas trop longtemps ici.
Oi, お前、トビー、食事持ってきた。早く慣れてくれるといいな。そうすりゃここまで運ばなくても済む。食事持ってきた。早く慣れてくれる
Wherever
とい
Roots
い
played,
な。そうすりゃ
it was a huge success. It has received its share of criticism, but it remained for the public all over the world to accept it as the social phenomenon and entertainment event of the year.
Can you say grits? Hey, grits. Dummy. You better be eating all them grits, dummy, because there ain't no more coming your way tonight. Chris? Oh, good boy. Good night, Toby. Tommy? Chris, Tommy. I'm gonna allow that you're just making sounds and ain't talking words, because if you call old fiddler a dummy, I'd like to not as feed you to them hogs. They ain't as choosy as you is about what they eat.
In 1767, when the African Kunta Kinte was sold on the auction block at Annapolis, Maryland, he was sold to a John Waller. He was brought here to Cedar Point in Spotsylvania County, Virginia, where the Waller plantation once stood. In the television film, John Waller is played by Lorne Greene, his brother by Robert Reed. Fiddler was one of many Waller slaves. It is from this plantation that Kunta Kinte tried to escape. The Waller plantation homes are gone now, part of a distant past. But Wallers still live here. Judge Nelson Waller recalls his family stories of Kunta Kinte, the slave they called Toby.
In a correct statement, as far as possible, Toby, he was purchased by a Waller. He was so excellent in the way and his attitude of doing his duty as the servant in the cornfield that they promoted him. This sounds wonderful. They promoted him to house duties, which I guess they would call it now butler. And the next promotion he did so well was that they made him a carriage driver. And he would get on the carriage and drive the horses for the boss. And he stayed and conducted himself so well there that he passed away at Cedar Point and was buried at Cedar Point. Now that is a true fact, because I know my father and my mother both knew it and got their information from their ancestors.
It was to a grave at Cedar Point that Kunta Kinte's daughter, Kizzy, returned. Played by Leslie Uggams, Kizzy, sold away from her parents, came back after many years, only to discover that her father had died.
Without my comfort, I guess you're worried about what happened to your little girl. Well, I got me a son. You like him, Daddy? I know you would. I told him about how you were looking for a log to make a drum when the slave catchers took you. And about your real name being Kunta Kinte, and Combi Balongo mean river, and Ko a fiddle. Sometimes he seems to forget. But he's a good boy, Daddy. He's just young, that's all. Soon, I'm gonna get married. And I'm gonna have more children. And I'm gonna teach them about freedom, so that they can teach their children. I promise you, Daddy, your dream will not die. Someday, we're gonna be free.
The Waller plantation graveyard, next to which the slaves were buried in either crudely marked or unmarked graves, now lies abandoned and hidden by wilderness. On November 10, 1977, LeVar Burton, went with Alex Haley in search of the African's grave. The two men walked in silence as if on a pilgrimage across the ground where Kunta and Belle were married, where Kunta learned to walk again after bounty hunters had chopped off his foot, where Kunta watched his daughter sold off to another man in another state, where Kunta died and was buried.
Let's see, here's John Waller. So that's definitely the Waller family graveyard here, which means that their slave graveyard was proximate to it. So it's probably in this area about behind here.
LeVar Burton recalls that moment.
Something, it's hard to explain, made each of us want to be alone at that moment with our own thoughts. It's hard to describe the emotion I felt as I approached the area where Kunta Kinte is buried. My whole life has been changed by this man. The thoughts many of us have about ourselves and our heritage have been changed by this man. And now, here I was, standing near where his bones had long since turned to dust, but where his spirit still lives.
For Alex Haley, the moment conjured up echoes of the past.
Your great-granddaddy's name was Kunta Kinte, son of Omuru, a Mandinka warrior. He's proud. Proud. You be proud, too. Because that African blood flows through you. As long as you know you comes from him, that we all come from him, you know why we be strong.
Alamance County, North Carolina, the plantation house of Andrew Murray as it stands abandoned today. Here, the family of the blacksmith Tom Murray, son of Chicken George, grandson of Kizzy, great-grandson of Kunta Kinte, gained their freedom with the end of the Civil War. From here, the family began its fateful journey to Tennessee in a wagon train led by the legendary Chicken George, played by Ben Vereen, and his wife, played by Emmy Award-winning Olivia Cole.
Let's go.
No, not yet.
Tell them, I know you're sorry to be leaving, but we gotta be moving.
I've been sitting here trying to remember. I knows every chink and every wall the winter wind blow through.
I know. It's hard, old woman, leaving.
Hard? Chicken George, you is a foolish old man. There ain't nothing hard about being happy. This ain't never been our home. Never belonged to us no way. This is Massa Harvey's nigger quarters. And we ride out of here, I ain't never gonna think on it again.
Well, go on then, Mew.
Let's move on.
they gained their freedom, the descendants of Kunta Kinte, like most former slaves, simply retained the surnames of their masters. Thus, they became free Murrays. Not all the former Murray slaves left Alamance County. Many stayed behind. A descendant of one of those, Effie Murray, now 93, recalls her father's days as a slave.
Born in Green Lava. I don't know about them. I just know what they tell. My daddy was, I forget how old, I can't think about how old he was, but he wasn't no more than about that high when Andy Meyer bought him from Billy Benson. Put him up on a block. I don't know what to give for him, though. And he stayed with him till he died. He died right on his place. He died right there in that old house. He'll be 69 years this April. My dad'll be dead 69 years this April. Died in that old house right yonder, upstairs there. That's where he died at.
The Old South is changing, says Alex Haley, and changing perhaps faster than the rest of the country. And it is here in the South, in Alamance County, North Carolina, that an historic event took place that dramatically illustrates that change. November 13th, 1977, the second reunion since the publication of Roots between the descendants of the Murray slave owners and the Murray slaves.
A long time. You know, that was after Roots was filmed.
Yes, you know, we tried to locate him before Roots.
Alex Haley was again present at this reunion, held at the Crossroads Presbyterian Church outside Mebane, North Carolina. The church stands on what was once the Murray Plantation.
How you all?
Hello.
And this is my husband, and that's my son.
And this is my oldest daughter right here, Dean.
And these two are nephews. They are my sister's children. Be all right.
The reunion was marked not only by an exchange of stories, but by an exchange of food, as each family, black and white, brought dishes to share at the old-fashioned picnic.
Ben Covington is on there.
Men and women of all ages, including Hattie Lynch, the oldest living white Murray, enjoyed the festivities.
It's so good to see all of you here today, Murrays, both black and white. I feel like on this occasion, the gathering of the Murray families, for this afternoon service, we should begin with prayer. Let us pray. O Holy Father, from whom every family on earth receives its name, we thank you for this day and for this gathering, for the opportunities we have to serve you. We ask that you be among us and enjoy the fellowship of this hour with us. For we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. As I thought about
the Reverend James Rissmiller, in his opening remarks, comments upon the importance of this historic reunion. The event, he explains, perhaps best illustrates the true meaning of Roots.
And I think we today have experienced something of that. We came together for a festival kind of occasion. And in the coming together, have experienced something no one planned, no one counted on. An experience which is good. An experience which comes as a gift from God. Thanks be to God for his gift. It is now my pleasure to introduce Alex Haley, a member of the Murray family, for a few remarks.
In 1872, my maternal grandmother was born here in this Alamance County. Her name was Cynthia Murray. Her father was Tom Murray, who had been a slave blacksmith on the Murray plantation. Her mother was named Irene, who had been owned by the Holt plantation. In late 1873, that particular Murray family, the Black Murrays, rode away from this county into western Tennessee, where they settled. In that wagon train were surnames of people whose ancestors are to be found in that cemetery just outside this church, the ancestors of most of us who are gathered here today. Somehow, our coming together now, more than 100 years later, some generations later, symbolizes things that are true across this nation. One of them is, most of us in this country, with the single exception of the American Indian, ancestrally came from somewhere across an ocean originally. I see us sitting here and I think of different types of ships. Immigrant ships from Europe, slave ships from Africa. And it seems to me that now that we can gather in this way that we do, we sort of symbolize the best potential of this country. And I think it very appropriate that we are gathered now here in a church, in the house of God. For if I perceive correctly what are the true missions of religion, of the church, they are to heal and to bind. Thank you.
Let us now stand and sing hymn number 473, Blessed Be the Tie That Binds.
Here, in this small southern church, one can perhaps see the beginnings of a new future. For if Roots has a message, it perhaps is in the questions it collectively asks all of us. Not only, who am I? Or where do I come from? But more importantly, where do we go from here?
From sorrow, toil, and pain, and sin we shall be free, and perfect love and friendship reign through all eternity.
The television production of Roots ended here on a hilltop in Tennessee, nearby what is now the town of Henning.
But Kunta Kinte, he'll never forget where he come from. He'll never forget Africa.
He never forget the words he spoke as a child. How ko mean a fiddle, and Kambi Balongo mean a river. And he never stopped fighting against his chains, trying to be free once more. Not even after they cut off half his foot to keep him from running away.
And before he died, he gave that dream of freedom to his daughter, Kizzy, my mama. And before she died, she gave that dream to me. And I've tried to keep that dream alive in all you children till that day come.
Hear me, O African. The flesh of your flesh has come to freedom. You is free at last. We is free.
The drama of Alex Haley's family did not end on that hilltop in Tennessee. It continued throughout the turmoil of Reconstruction, the excitement of the turn of the century, and 2 world wars. It is, in fact, part of the drama and history of all families. There have been literally millions of words written about Roots. I'm sure more will come. For generations, there will be those who will try to explain, to understand the phenomena surrounding the book and the television program. We feel, however, that the final words for this program should be reserved for the creator of Roots.
It all started right here, right on that front porch when I was a little boy, and Grandma would tell me the family stories. And I just can't help feel that it was meant to be, that when I would become a man, those stories would become first a book, then a television film, both of which symbolize as much a part of America's history as does the Mayflower. By now, the response worldwide has made Roots more than just a book or a television event, because peoples everywhere have been moved to searching after their own roots. And in making us realize how alike we all are, Roots really may have become a bridge to a greater understanding between all peoples. And we so much need this in this world that we share today that I find myself vividly remembering something else Grandma used to say. She would say, "The Lord might not come right when you expect him to, but he will always be on time."